Hi everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have your natal black moon Lilith in the sign of Leo. Before I continue, I want to give a shout out to advancedastrology.com as well as tandrosemary.com for providing information for this video. And yet at the same time, when I say something, I'm putting it in my own words. So I don't want you to think that these sites are necessarily saying what I'm saying, because maybe they intended for something different and I inferred certain things from what they said. So I do recommend tandrosemary.com, which seems to be an astrology-based website for the backstory of Black Moon Lilith. If you kind of are a little bit hazy about it, like I still am, even after having read so many different accounts online, but I really feel that this particular site explains it the best and talks about the different, very briefly about different takes on Lilith. And I think from all the different sites that I have visited, what I think Lilith represents is really about the areas where we feel shamed. And when you feel shamed, it's because other people are not accepting these qualities within you. So it's kind of like, and they mention the word rejection. So it's like being rejected for a part of yourself. But then not accepted, rejected, and like kind of not accepted. So you feel like you can't, you feel that repression, like a blockage, I guess you would call it. And there can be a deep wounding. It has, sometimes I think of Chiron, but they compare it to Pluto sometimes, because there can be like the shadow self, especially when it comes to sexuality. And with Leo, these issues revolve around creativity and how you express yourself personally. And and another thing that I have read on more than one site is not feeling safe. And I think that's a good one. And of course, rebellion has been mentioned as well. But it's really difficult because rebellion almost implies that a person is doing something wrong when they're simply pushing back against those people who would try to repress them. I guess one big thing about Black Moon Lilith is that it can be that you overdo something or you underdo it. So with rebellion, sometimes somebody rebels by refusing to do something, or they do it to excess. And so both of those are extremes, right? So I guess maybe we could look at it that way. Now, one thing that a site that I visited, advancedastrology.com, talks about how the wounding may have come, from your past with your parents, if they were giving you or not giving you unconditional love. And it can also involve being ignored by parents, frozen out emotionally by them, rejected from them. And Leo is known for wanting attention. So sometimes, children in general, we see this all the time, is that they want attention from parents and other adults, but especially parents. And if the parent is like annoyed by that, and they express that to the child, that's a form of shaming them. when it's a natural need, to be given attention by your parents. And I think that a lot of negative behavior is coming from that desire for attention from a parent. So when you see a child acting up, I think a lot of times it's because that's the only way really to get attention is through negative attention, when you can't just get it straight on. And yet, this person may be afraid of attention as much as they want it. There's this theme of admiration, needing it. Of course, Leo, we know that that's a sign that is always craving that kind of experience from other people. And when that is taken too far, that can lead to narcissism. And Leo is a sign that is naturally associated with narcissism. But this is one of the reasons why I do believe when we're thinking about people who are narcissistic, is that somewhere they were kind of destroyed emotionally in terms of their sense of self. And so because they don't have that, they're trying to seek it from the outer world to kind of give them that constant admiration. And that's what the celebrity who is imbalanced, who is coming from an empty place, does. And advanced astrology suggests that the father may have been this tyrant and abusive. I don't know why they are specifying the father, other than that Leo is a masculine sign, so that could be what they're talking about. I personally wouldn't necessarily focus on the father alone. I would just say the parent in general. And this is because they were talking about the person may feel that their self has been, their self-concept has been destroyed, or will they say wounded? I would even say destroyed, or their self-confidence has been debased in some way. They also say that the ego is strong in this placement of Lilith. And this is, so it's very important. Now, when I said that thing about the narcissist, I'm not suggesting that any of you who have this placement are narcissists. I'm saying that this is one of those things. A true narcissist who is destructive to other people and therefore destructive to themselves is going to be a very, that person's going to be a very dangerous person in terms of like creating a lot of pain for others because their pain body is so great. But you can have some of those qualities of a narcissist and not officially be one. And this is kind of where I'm getting at with this, where if somebody's sense of self-confidence has been wounded to a certain degree, then they can kind of mask that with a false sense of confidence. And this is what we refer to as arrogance. And if your sun sign is it could be any fire sign, then that can just exacerbate that tendency. Because, I mean, for instance, I'm a sun in Sagittarius, which is a fire sign. The other fire signs, of course, Leo, but also Aries. And fire signs are regarded sometimes as arrogant because they kind of like tend to exude a certain inner knowing that is connected to themselves, and they really promote the self in one way or the other. Creativity is associated with fire signs from creative self-expression, because that is the root of creativity, is this idea of expressing the self in a unique way. And other signs can feel that this is coming from a certain arrogance. And, sometimes that might be right, but it's not always the case. It's just that it's misunderstood sometimes. But if somebody is looking down on other people, obviously that's no bueno. And that is definitely in that vein of arrogance. But this idea of really being into self doesn't mean that the person is self-absorbed. It simply means that the person is deriving a lot of inspiration from their own inner being, if you will. And the danger is the insecurity. Advanced astrology says you are deeply insecure. They say that verbatim. And they say, but you can be afraid to admit it even to yourself. And when this happens, when somebody doesn't really acknowledge that they're insecure, that's when it gets problematic, because there tends to be a projection, and they can, see other people. And I, personally speaking, this is the thing about the narcissistic personality and why they gravitate towards certain people, is because they see the vulnerability in those people. And those people tend to be empaths who are not living in the world in a sense of like, hey, I'm better than other people. They really have a sense of empathy for others. And the narcissist knows this, and they know they can get away with their crap. And so they glom onto those people. But it's just in general, understanding vulnerability. And I think that that can really be part of that, is that if you look at somebody who you see as insecure, that can trigger something within yourself that doesn't like to see insecurity, and then you can feel that they are the problem instead of owning your own insecurity. A lot of the things that we don't like are really mirror images coming from deep within ourselves, the shadow self. So this is what that Pluto connection is to Lilith, is the shadow. And when it's, displayed in others, it can be almost unbearable if it's very unknown within the individual. And so if you have this placement, the more you can do self-exploration, the better, because then you will get to the bottom of these kinds of things, and you're less likely to project, and you're more likely to heal. Wanting attention can mean wanting drama, because it is through drama that you may gain attention. But what kind of attention is drama? It's negative attention. And this is where things can go horribly wrong, because you might be the center of attention, but you're craving that admiration. And drama doesn't magnetize you to admiration. It can actually be, like I had said earlier, this negative attention. And so this is what you have to really come to terms with, because fire signs, not that everybody with, I'm not going to characterize people with, I almost said Chiron, with Black Moon Lilith in Leo as being fire signs, but I'm just saying in general, fire signs tend to live very passionately, but when they are in balance, they tend to confuse drama with passion. They don't see that there's a big difference. Drama is draining, and passion is actually not only inspirational, but it kind of gives you more energy, but positive energy. So there's, a lot of negativity with drama. And so relationships might be fraught with issues because of this. Now, I don't want to make it sound like it's just these bad things, because you may be a very charismatic person. You may have a magnetic aura, if you will, that draws people to you like moth to the flame. And this may be kind of, they use the word glamorous on advancedastrology.com. I would call it more of that charisma, because glamour to me also involves, being very stylish and things like that. And I feel like this is more like the personality of the individual that is blended in with their energy that's kind of the auric field may represent. Now, here's something interesting. Apparently, Marilyn Monroe had Black Moon Lilith in Leo. And they said that she had it in her first house, which is the house of the self. And this is one of those houses, if you're a celebrity, along with the 10th house and maybe the 7th house, I don't know, that could be indicative of somebody who is famous. But definitely fame I would associate with Leo in general. And they even talk about obsession with status when you have Black Moon Lilith in Leo. And it's funny because I always associate Capricorn with status, because the 10th house of Capricorn rules is associated with, a person's place in the world and status in life. And yet it's also associated with fame. And what is also interesting is that Capricorn and Leo are considered two signs that are in conjunction to one another, which means that they're very different and awkward angles to one another. And yet I can see with both of those signs a connection to status. So that's something I guess that would also apply to Leo. And so one of those things is like when you think of somebody who is famous and they haven't had a hit movie or a hit song in a long time, it's that fear of like, oh my gosh, people are going to forget me and I'm going to be a nobody. And that is that kind of mentality that can happen if you have this position. And I would say too, like with a woman, that aging could kind of play into this, because when you're younger and you haven't hit the wall yet, as they say, you can turn some heads, right? If you're reasonably attractive and your feminine, what would you call it? Not your feminine wiles, but that feminine power, whatever you want to call it, that can give you attention from the opposite sex. And I'm specifying men because they tend to be more visual. Women, I don't know. I don't think that would work. Like if you were attracting other women, I think it might be for another reason, not just, the physical. But anyway, if you have a sun sign or maybe even an ascendant in Taurus or Libra, these are signs that are both ruled by Venus and they have that connection to beauty. You may be particularly vulnerable to aging with this Lilith position or sign, because you're already very connected to your physical appearance, or maybe Venus in conjunction with Chiron, or squaring Chiron, opposing Chiron, something like that. Or, Chiron in Taurus or Libra. So think about that, because that might be a way that you try to get attention from others, is through your physical appearance. Or maybe even the fact that Lilith is in the first house, like Marilyn Monroe, and she was such a part of who she was not only her image, but her physical appearance. I don't think I've done Marilyn Monroe's chart. I should do that, because there would probably be other things there that would kind of show up for that. When you're young, you might be shy, and the insecurity might be more noticeable. So, but I would say, especially if your sun sign is in Pisces, is in Cancer, Virgo, a sign that tends to be kind of timid, this might be even more the case, and tends to kind of feel self-conscious. But the positive things. So I've talked about magnetism, your charisma, and the masculine energy. They talk about a wound with the masculine energy, but they also said, I'm talking about advanced astrology, they're also talking about an imbalance between the feminine and masculine energy. And so I'm kind of confused about that, because Leo is a masculine sign, but they talk about the masculine energy can be wounded. So how is it wounded? Well, sometimes when there is wounding, it can be excessive. So it could be somebody who is too aggressive, and this is because they don't have a balanced male-female energetics. And I would say it would be more likely something like that, because even if somebody is insecure, a lot of times I observe people who are very pushy, and I can tell that even though they are, aggressive, that they probably have a very low self-esteem. They don't feel like they will get their needs met, so they have to be very aggressive. And this is not the divine masculine. This is toxic masculinity, is aggression. There is such a thing as the divine masculine. You wouldn't know it these days, but there is such a thing. Like the King of Wands in the tarot represents this, and this is the person who has stepped into their power to the highest degree and is expressing it in the outer world in the form of assertiveness, not aggression. There is a difference. When you can ask for what you need, and you're not apologetic, you're not mealy-mouthed, and you're not an obnoxious bully that is demanding everything, you will likely get your needs met, and you will be respected, because you're just kind of coming to the world, whatever it is. If you need a fork at a restaurant, you're not being apologetic. You're just saying, hey, can I please have a fork? And you're not throwing your weight around, and you're not being a jerk. So I don't really know what they're talking about, but that's how I would perceive it, is that maybe it's like a tendency to be too aggressive, because, they had said that when you're young that you might be very insecure. So I would think of somebody who is, too passive, perhaps, but maybe that's not exactly what they meant, because Leo is definitely a masculine sign, and Leo can be associated with the tyrant or the bully when it is, talking about, usually I would think of adults, but maybe all along, and because of the imbalance. Leo is a warm sign. So when somebody has Lilith and they are on the path of healing, I would imagine that you would be very um, warm hearted and generous towards others. If you have ever been shamed for creativity, for being, even with Leo has all the fire signs, there's an expansive quality. So fire signs tend to really be positive and want to grow. And sometimes, believe it or not, people get shamed for that because they're being brought up in an environment that is very negative. And those the people, maybe like parents for instance, they're not living their dreams, so they don't want to see it reflected in someone else, and maybe they're frustrated artists or something, and they feel kind of like, when they have a child who is has their whole life in front of them, it's like kind of dampening their dreams because their dreams feel like they were dampened. And so part of healing is realizing that the people that did negative things to you, they also were um, feeling thwarted in their life. And it doesn't excuse that kind of abuse, but it explains it, and it can make it easier for you to resolve that you're not going to allow anybody to destroy your dreams, and to keep you from your creative self-expression, whatever that may be. Okay, well, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a personal reading with me, I have all kinds of readings, and you can find out more information at the link below. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye.